To welcome everybody to the Berwick Planning Board meeting. It's a regular meeting for Thursday, February 21st, 2019. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Planning Board members present tonight. Regular members Sean Winston. We have the Vice Chair Paul Bovair. We have regular member Nicole Fecto and alternate Mike LaRue. Absent tonight, Niall Shore. So Mike, you'll be a voting member tonight. Moving on to the public comment session. Public comment session is open to any resident or property owner in the town of Berwick to come forward and speak to the planning board about anything that's under the purview of the planning board. Feel free to come forward. Public comment session is open.
Rick Ingalls. I have the Mylar for what we discussed at the last planning board meeting. I just wanted to make sure I was on the agenda. I didn't want to sit here all night and find out that I wasn't on the agenda. So, am I on the agenda? Can I present
You're not
this?
on the agenda this evening. Did you and Lee have an opportunity to look at the?
No, I guess we just didn't communicate clearly that we wanted to see the planning.
I came to the last meeting and I was under the impression at the end of the meeting that I needed to bring the Mylar to the next meeting to have it signed after you'd reviewed what I presented at the last meeting. That was my fault, I guess, because I'm not familiar with this, but you looked at the preliminary and I thought the next thing was to do was to get the Mylar printed and I was going to bring it to the next meeting and have it signed. So that's why I'm here.
It's just we had a rough estimate of what the boundaries were, so to actually see what the...
This is identical to what you guys saw at the
Okay.
last meeting. Identical. I mean, that's why I presented it. This is what Civil Consultants had proposed. That was on the letterhead that they presented. And this is now the Mylar for the exact thing that you saw at the meeting 2 weeks ago. The exact identical. It's just that now it's I thought was the time to sign it so that I could move on. But you also asked if Jay, the abutter, was here, and Jay is here, and so I'd at least like him, so he doesn't have to come back to say that he's okay with this.
Let's start with that. Sure, absolutely. Thank you.
Jay, would you want to come up?
It's not typical for us to sign during a meeting.
I'm just gonna.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, it's actually my
If you could just state your
mother's-
name and your address for the record.
Yes, Jason Ruthier, 361 Diamond Hill Road.
Okay.
And, yeah, I want to do this land swap that he proposed. It's in the best interest for me there. He owns a lot of land out back, and, I don't know.
And I understand that a couple of your buildings are on his property, right?
Yes,
Currently
they've
right
been
now.
there for years. And my father built, there was no, my grandfather actually owned all this land, and he sold it a while back, I don't know how many years ago, but before that, land was just whatever there, and father built a shed, it's on his property. It's still there, and
All right, thank you. All right, so
We never voted on it.
we never voted on the application being complete
Or anything,
so,
yeah.
So, I mean, there's a couple different ways that we could move forward with this. We could move this down to old business this evening and vote the application complete, take a look at the Mylars. But we don't have a findings of fact.
Yeah.
We don't have anything prepared by staff.
Right.
So we don't have anything that's prepared by staff.
That's
We
okay.
need that.
I have this. Why don't I just present it to James right now?
Absolutely.
And then when it's all finalized, just let me. I'm not even sure I need to be here. When you
Well,
sign
you do
it,
because
let
we
me
can't.
know.
You do because we can't discuss the application without you.
I
so.
understand. I'm not familiar with the.
Yeah,
the-
All right,
the
so I'll
protocol.
just
So let me-
explain what we'll do. So what we'll do, thank you for coming in, because I know that was one of the things, we just wanted to make sure that you weren't just drawing new property lines on your
Exactly.
neighbor just for the heck of it.
Exactly.
March 7th, when you
Yep.
come in, we will vote on the application whether or not we find it complete, which it looks pretty complete.
Fine, yep.
And then we will also have the opportunity for the town planner to type up the findings of fact that we
Sure.
have to vote on too, and then we can probably do everything in one evening.
Yeah, that's fine. I just didn't, like I said, I wasn't sure of the protocol. I did get this ready, and so I didn't realize I had to bring it into the town.
Okay.
But let me pass it on to James. He'll have everything that needs to be reviewed, and then just schedule me whenever you're ready.
March 7th.
March 7th? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's okay.
All right, next on the agenda is the approval of minutes for the February 7th, 2019 meeting. Thanks. I believe Nicole had one small change, but she might not want to go forward with it.
I don't even remember which number it was that we said we're cool with that and asked for that to be put in the minutes when we were asked, are we
just-
cool
we'll
with
just skip
that?
over
So
that.
we're gonna skip that. I don't know, Paul's marking up his minutes over here, so.
No, this is what we were just
Oh, okay.
getting from Mr. Ingles here. I didn't personally see anything out of tune in this set of minutes.
That was a great meeting though, man.
All right, so the motion will be for approval of minutes as is.
I'll make the motion that we approve the minutes as they are written.
I'll second. Further discussion? All in favor? Okay, it's 5-0. Next on the agenda is a request to table. It's the application for Northeast Ready Mix, and the applicant, through his attorney, requests to table this till the March 7th meeting. This is an email from their attorney, Bradley Morin. It says, we've been discussing this, and there's probably some more work to get this ready for consideration of final approval, which may involve some revision to the proposed plan. We think it would be a more efficient use of the board's time if we can table it to the next meeting and present them with a better package. Please let us know if this matter can be tabled, or if you want NERM to come to the meeting to make the request to table at the meeting. So that's what they wanted. They want to be back on the agenda for March 7th, because we did table them to this meeting.
I've been
Okay.
through a couple of these before like this, and you don't have to have the applicant here, especially if there's a request, by
In
his
writing.
attorney.
We just don't want to talk about
So
it.
I think all we need is a motion to table.
Correct.
And whether we set a date or not, or leave it open, I guess.
I mean,
I
do
think,
they,
I think we should set it to March 7th. I think we should set it to March 7th.
We're gonna have a big agenda. Then I'll make a motion that we table the application for Northeast Ready Mix until March 7th.
I'll second it.
Further discussion? All in favor? All right, that's 5-0. Next is a public hearing on the land use ordinance amendment. The land use, do we have any copies of the land use ordinance that are here tonight?
The amendments,
Yes.
I have them here.
Okay, so if anybody has not seen them yet, they are on the town's website. I know they're making their way around.
I can-
We've also posted them on social media, and they're also posted inside Town Hall. So this is a public hearing just on the land use ordinance amendments. And how this will work is, once,
I can read through them and explain, go down through them if you want.
sure, if you want to, actually, you don't have to come up now. But how this will work is, this is the public hearing tonight, so we'll take into consideration anything that is passed, and then we'll discuss it. And then what's going to happen then is the planning board will vote to approve these and pass them on to the selectmen. And the selectmen, if they so choose to put them on the town ballot for the town meeting in June, that's what they'll do. So that's what we're looking at doing this evening. So, James.
Sure, so on the first page, under Part A, it's conditional use in the Shoreland Commercial Industrial District to allow low-impact industrial. And what low-impact industrial is it's really things like bakeries, breweries. They really are low impact, and they are, it's a very specific definition that's like this long in our land use ordinance. And it's, they're compatible by nature with the shoreland. And And you'll see in the next one, we are reducing the dimensional requirements for the shoreland commercial industrial to hopefully get more lots, more property value in our immediate downtown area. And number 2, so there's a thing, this gets pretty nuanced and kind of complicated pretty quickly, but with note 1 in our dimensional requirements, things like setbacks, we have a note that if older houses, they tend to be set back closer to the property line. And in the R3 zone, we've seen recently this note 1 being used to other houses can also be close as the neighbors are. And that can lead to a situation where our R3 zone starts becoming more built out. And there's a planning term called sprawl. And for many reasons, including road maintenance, salt, all of our infrastructure, the more spread out you are, plus, there's things like trees, and it's our natural environment we want to preserve. So what this does is it takes away note 1 for the R3 in AP district. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. And then number 10 here, this is a new one from last time. Paul brought up at first, I didn't know exactly what you were talking about, but this addresses the fact that our village overlay district, it makes all dimensional requirements exempt, but for some reason that didn't count for within the shoreland commercial industrial district. Doesn't make sense. If it's in the village overlay.
And I think an example is SCI within 250 feet of the Salmon Falls River is 250 feet. For example, like if Gateway Gas or Brackett and Shaw or anything like that wanted to change the use of the land, it becomes tied to the underlying district, which is Maine State Shoreland Zoning, I think. Shoreland zoning. And means you really are restricted heavily with a new use where you wouldn't be able to do it. If you're a grandfather, it's not an issue, but if you're trying to change the use, then it becomes an issue.
Like from a gas station to something
Yeah,
maybe more palatable.
And my point was, when you look at any city or town in the state of Maine built on a river, there's a lot, especially here where we're urban on the river, there's a lot of activity on the river. I mean, you can go to Brunswick and find hotels on the river,
Yeah.
And it just didn't seem to make sense that we would stick with plain old shoreline zoning as the underlying district. So.
All right, James.
Number 3, this ties back into infrastructure cost, where we have probably 80 roads in the town, and a lot of them are turning into town-owned roads. So, this is in the interest of Public Works and really our budget to no longer accept private roads in our
Dead-end roads.
dead-end roads.
That don't have
exactly.
the-
Dead-end roads, yeah. And that also goes to the ability for Public Works to be able to plow, because they, Public Works has a short staff, and they have to go down dead-end roads and turn around. Actually, it puts a lot on them. So that's what those 3 paragraphs are. And Steve, you wanted to.
Some questions, yeah.
Actually, we can get to that later, but okay. The number 4 is 3 new definitions that were in our use table that weren't defined. So we had things in our use table that weren't defined. That just tidies that up. And also, we're crossing out 1, 2, 3, 4, basically 5 things that aren't uses, so they don't belong in the use table. Getting to marijuana, nothing's changed from last time.
And marijuana's going to be on a separate spot on the ballot if it goes to ballot, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
There'll be a
Correct.
separate vote.
yes. So it's not going to be tied to all the rest of the land use ordinance adjustments.
And that's a good point. If the changes go through, this acts as our opt-in to adult use marijuana. So if you don't want that, then you vote no. If you want us to opt in, then it's a yes.
And that, one of the changes that's come down from the state, I think, is the redefinition of adult use versus recreational use. So
Or-
they've changed, right now you don't say recreational use anymore, it's adult use.
Yeah, recreational or retail marijuana.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
This is,
adult.
this is bringing things in line with what many other communities are doing.
Yeah, and the state, the way
What
the
the state,
state.
and what the
state's
state is going to be
definitions, yeah.
requiring.
And it's still distinct from medicinal use.
Correct.
Oh, God.
So we define what adult use marijuana is, and then there's a lot of things that are just tidying up the definitions. And the big thing is allowing adult use production facilities and adult use stores on the rural, commercial, industrial zone as a conditional use.
I have a question, James.
Yep.
Where we recommend to the Board of Selectmen to establish a licensing schedule, and we actually enumerate some dollar amounts in there, that's not something typically we do as a board, is it? We leave it up 100% to
When we
to the
talked,
Board of
I
Selectmen.
remember we had meetings with the, when we had meetings with the selectmen, we told them that we were going to go ahead and do this because Lee J, the town planner, was more well-versed in that, in what other municipalities were doing when it came to assigning those dollar amounts. So we were going to put that in there.
So it's a recommendation.
It's a recommendation.
So they don't
sure.
have to go do the research. It's been done, right?
Correct.
Yep. Then just more tidying up definitions. A big thing is treating butane extraction as an industrial use and considered explosive. So we have ethanol extraction, there's butane extraction, which has more risks, not compatible with residential. Then this would be a third warrant because it's a separate from a land use ordinance, but this is a Town of Berwick littering and animal waste ordinance. And the addition is a fine for animal waste. So we have it in ordinance, but it didn't specify what the fine would be. This just specifies what the penalty would be. So that concludes the overview.
Actually, this is not even going to be in the land use ordinance.
Right. Right.
This came at the request of the selectmen for us to come up with something like this, and so it won't even be in the land use ordinance.
Right.
We've had a,
And it's already an adopted ordinance. It's just an amendment.
yeah, it includes, I mean, this ordinance already includes littering and animal waste, and there were no fines in that ordinance. It was enacted in 2016.
Yeah, for animal waste.
Now we're just adding the
The
amount of the
actual
fine.
fine, yeah.
Yeah.
Clean up after your animals.
So, one thing you'll notice is I actually, my suggestion is to eliminate the thing on the Quonset huts. And my suggestion is we wait until the comprehensive plan and have an extended discussion about those types of items.
Temporary storage facilities.
Yeah, and I think, we got some good feedback from a community member, and, I agree we should be, careful with how we do things, and ultimately, these issues are things that can be discussed with community forums, and everybody can have input, and we can brainstorm on, it should come from the community, how we want to regulate these things.
Okay.
And
I got some feedback too, so.
I talked to Dan about it, and we went back and forth about it. And I think we're on the. I think he wants us to push forward with these things.
All right, we could talk about that in old business. Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to give everybody a rundown. Are you all set?
Yes.
All right. So this is a public hearing for the land use ordinance amendments that as were just presented tonight. So please feel free to come to the podium and just state your name and address.
Hi,
Steve Clement, I live at 127 Cranberry Meadow Road. I just had some questions on some of the stuff on the land use changes on an existing project that I own, Heritage Estates, and how that would affect something that's been ongoing. Say, for example, I have a third phase that is not turned over to the town, it's private, but phase 1 and 2 has been turned over since '06. Phase 3 has been being built since '05 to today. And the whole idea is to connect it to the other side eventually. I don't know if this is grandfathered in any way that would be turned over, and how does the board feel about that?
Which
Heritage?
is that? Heritage Estates?
It's Elmwood Drive and Ciderboro Lane.
Okay,
So
that's your neighborhood.
that was all,
I'm gonna.
Recuse yourself. You can stay here. Just
stay here,
let
but-
the record show that Sean is a resident of that neighborhood. So I'm very familiar with the road, and you've been talking about connecting it.
Yeah.
right.
For,
The road is not a private road. It's a town road right now, and it's being plowed.
One half of it is town road, the other half is private, which is on two sides, Route 9 and Cranberry. The Cranberry side's still private. I've been maintaining it since I built it.
What part is not being plowed?
Elmwood and Ciderboro Lane, 17 lots.
That's that's not being plowed coming off of
no,
Cranberry
because
Meadow?
that's like a
No.
dead end. It dead ends.
I haven't turned it over. I've kept it.
But if you, here,
However-
if you tie them together, which is the plan, right?
Right.
When you tie them together, then,
This leads into other questions and
Yeah.
concerns.
All right, so-
Moving forward with engineering, but
yeah.
If we go back and we look at the, that's up in R3, right?
R2.
Or two. yeah.
R2, okay, so dead-end streets shall remain private until connectivity to other streets may occur. If the street is connected to another street, making it a throughway with a second means of egress to a public way and built to town standards, it may be petitioned to become a public way.
Right, petitioned, right? So this was all approved in '05, money was collected, 6% in escrow. Most of that money's been used in all the inspections over the years. There's a little bit of infrastructure left, but my question is, I have an association that's been established, all the phases are included in it, except phase 1. But anyway, I would turn it back over to the homeowners, but with the idea that they know that, funds have been secured to finish it, or, if I get in the middle of this project and there's a hang-up on anything that can come out of any progress of engineering, we've been through it all the phases were done pretty much at the same time, but I would need to know, to be able to tell the association, what my plan is and how the town feels about it. I'm in no hurry to turn it over, I'd like to do more of my infrastructure in there, which, James, am I on the agenda for anything tonight? Okay.
You're talking about connecting the
Right.
road from Cranberry Meadow to School Street.
No, yeah, right. It would be the
So it would be a
extension of
through.
Elmwood and the extension of Heritage would connect, which is roughly
Connect,
3,000 feet.
what would that, I mean, I would think that would, I would think that wouldn't meet the definition of a dead-end street anymore. And I think that it could be petitioned to be considered a public way,
Right.
similar to
Any
how
other.
how any other subdivision gets their road on there.
But I think there's some nuances here, and I've been with your project
Since
from
the
the day
beginning.
you started.
Right.
And you started on the School Street side, then you started in from the Cranberry Meadow side, and you're building one or two houses at a time as you're coming to tie the two roads together. But you do have a couple of spur roads that I think we may want to consider whether we can grandfather these, because the spur roads are little dead ends. Like behind Cumberland Farms, for example, in R1, where but the intent was never to not include those into your entire end-to-end connection. They should all be part of the same plan.
And they are.
Yeah.
Clement Lane and Ciderboro. I mean, that was a design on the plan and recorded, which we agreed to. And now I understand the plowing situation. We, addressed, the plowing in the past, the having the right trucks, the right size, how the damage is done. And I understand that
You've been doing your own for
We've
quite a
cleaned that
while.
up quite a bit. But I plowed phase 1 and 2 from 2006, and I don't charge the owners. They pay full taxes to the town. I've had that many discussions with the several town managers over the year also. I don't feel they should pay me. But as we move forward and we get into this bigger piece, the time frame on, I don't wanna keep, I don't wanna be stuck with something or them stuck with something to have to pay for a service that we all signed up to, get a service from the town is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. So, and I don't know how we.
No, I mean,
from a
I could talk with
grandfathering
Lee J tomorrow morning about adding language in for grandfathering, or
Right.
if there's a project already underway.
Right, I mean, we had discussion in the beginning, this was roughly a 75 house lot subdivision to be phased out, which the town wanted, which I agreed to. But I don't wanna be, plowing into infrastructure and, turning a road over to an association that if something happens and it's theirs, I don't think that's right either.
But I think in the long run, I have a feeling that you are gonna connect the two roads.
If I live
And
long
that will
enough.
become, and that will be proposed to the town to
Right,
be
well,
accepted with a warrant
The
article.
plan is we.
But what
we did the
happens
two
to your
phases.
cul-de-sacs?
The third and fourth phase were all, went through the DEP at the same time. When I mean everything, everything's been done. I've been in contact with the DEP, we've been working on all the stuff, putting it together. I'm getting ready to pull the trigger to build out the middle in a couple segments. Not to be turned over. I would just simply build it and keep building it, not opening up a lot. I don't need to go through that again, to have more control of it. But I'm just saying, what if something happens, anything can happen that, the vernal pools, we don't have vernal pools, but, there's endangered species, we've been through that, and we've cleaned that up. But any of these things, there could be something new that comes into effect, and all of a sudden, wait a minute, or the town changes the land use ordinance again, that we don't want any subdivisions. I mean, I need to have that clear in language to protect me and the people that are part of the association.
James, can you look at number 3 here again?
Yep.
It says all roads in this subdivision shall remain private roads to be maintained by the developer or the lot owners and shall not be accepted or maintained by the town until they meet the municipal street designs and construction standards. Or this development is located in the R2, R3 AP zone and has a cul-de-sac or dead-end design and shall not be accepted as a public way. What does that mean? And shall not be accepted as a public way?
Kind of contradicts it.
That does contradict it. So basically, if you take out that last sentence,
Yeah.
and shall not be accepted as a public way, basically it's saying that all roads in a subdivision shall remain private roads to be maintained by the owners until they meet the municipal street design and construction standards, or if they're in the R2, R3, they have to have a cul-de-sac or dead-end design.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I agree.
So
yeah.
I think that we should strike that right here, because then that's saying if you have a spur road,
Right.
as long as you have a cul-de-sac
Ex-
or a dead-end
ex-
design,
Explain the cul-de-sac definition. A circle?
a circle or the
Not a
dead-end.
throughway.
Not a throughway.
It's not a throughway. That's the definition. We're trying to say that if the street is a throughway from a public road to a public road, you can petition for it to be
Right.
accepted. If it doesn't, then you cannot petition for it to be accepted. That's what it is, and that was the intention of it, right?
That's not what I asked you. What is
If
a hammerhead turnaround?
a hammerhead turnaround or a
Circle, is that
cul-de-sac.
all defined as cul-de-sac?
Yeah, I would
Dead
have-
end design.
Yeah, it's a dead end. Yeah.
I'd have to pull it. I'd have to look up the
But
definition.
cul-de-sacs are meant to be temporary until the road keeps going.
Well, you get these spur roads that were created from the beginning.
And we want to prevent spur roads.
Right.
Yeah,
But I agree. I'll rework this to make it
Yeah.
yeah.
make sense.
Right.
Yeah.
The idea of continuing anything in there is it will be a horseshoe, a loop, or a throughway.
But I
some
would
of this
think
stuff
you'd
that was
also be
engineered,
concerned.
I didn't want a T turnaround just because of children, someone in a road, a car pulls up and backs back up. The whole idea was just not backing up, which it's not just about the snow plowing. To me, a truck goes backwards just as well as it goes forward. But the idea was about safety and a vehicle coming in. And the whole idea with the plowing to me is spreading the snow out evenly around a loop and not stuffing it into one driveway, which I had talks with John St. Pierre on a power angle plow, not a fixed blade, not a wing, stuffing it all from left to right. So some of this stuff Paul Lapierre asked for and wanted in the beginning of this, and that's how these two spur roads are hammerheads, which I didn't agree to, and shortly after my last approval in '05, we changed them in town, more like a teardrop, because you can't get the snow out of the middle of a circle. You have to have some type of an oval to be able to keep the snow from on the blade. So I've heard I've done them, plowed them, and heard all the feedback, but I don't want to be stuck with some of it not turned over And
You don't want to have your main artery, a town road, and then have a
Right.
couple spur
Right.
roads
Right.
that are private.
And right now, there's one that was built, it is turned over, and there's another one that has been built, which is part of the Elmwood. Cyberville is not, that's a spur road, it's dead end, and that's not continuing anywhere, that's built out.
All right, I think we need to, do you want to circle back to that one? We need to, because especially with that last part there, it doesn't make any
But
sense.
we ought to be thinking about future subdivision. I mean, Steve Clement's been going since 2005 or 6
Yeah.
on this
2000.
project.
We did the
So, I
first
mean,
phase.
certainly grandfathering is an important concept
I mean,
for
you,
his
so
particular project.
the
But how
science
about
would-
new projects
Right.
Yeah.
with little cul-de-sacs or dead ends on a
Correct.
major road that will be connecting?
Right.
How do we deal with
Those
those
can
as
just
we
be
go forward?
road associations, and the owners do it. I mean, it's
There's a lot
done.
of private stuff that's
yeah,
being,
there's-
So the main
done all
road
the
is
time.
plowed by the town when it gets
And
accepted,
then,
but the
yeah,
little
and
dead
then
ends
the 3 to
are
5 houses
privately-
in that hammerhead or cul-de-sac,
Right.
they all get together, they pay for it, they maintain it, and then end of story.
That's it, could be an issue.
So to fix that sentence,
It's
you
all over the
could
place.
say until they meet the municipal street.
Actually, you know what, why don't, we're in a public hearing,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
we're talking about this in old business, so let's
Yeah.
come back down to that in old business, because I just want to just kind of keep things
yeah,
smooth.
okay.
All right,
Good.
thank you.
I keep jumping the gun. I'm excited.
You cool?
He's back.
Continuing on, this is this is a public hearing for the land use ordinance amendments. Please feel free to come forward to the podium.
Jump back in now.
I have a
Yes.
question.
Yeah, come on, can you come up to the podium,
You
please?
guys, I'm only here for the temporary storage thing. Are you guys killing that? Is that what I
Sounds
heard
like it.
earlier?
Go ahead, talk about it.
Yeah.
If you want. Go ahead, talk about it.
All right. Well, I had a bunch of concerns.
All right, if you could just state your name and your
Sure.
address.
Cyrus Morgan, it's 41 Old Pine Hill Road South. I guess my question is, why even put those under consideration? I mean, is there an issue
No.
with them?
Well, I can explain. So we have a new, actually awesome code enforcement officer. He comes from Newmarket. And if you look at Newmarket has a community. I think a lot of the ways we're trying to model ourselves after. Understanding we're different. They're New Hampshire. We're Maine. We're in a smaller scale. But it comes from, we have a lot of illegal storage trailers that are blatantly illegal. So you have trailers on properties that are just storing stuff.
Yep.
So he's gonna address those violations, and the idea is to have permanent structures rather than going from a temporary structure to another temporary structure. That's the thought process behind it.
Okay, I guess one of my questions is, I mean, with those, I use one about 4 months out of the year in the winter for my chickens, and then I take it down. Would I have to come to you guys every time I want to put
No,
it up?
because the way, first of all, we're not moving forward on that. Because we
Okay.
decided, because after hearing from a couple people, we want to take a little bit more time on that, and I'm glad that you came here. It would be anything that's longer than 6 months, okay?
Okay.
The reason behind it also is because there's a lot of temporary storage facilities, pop-up tents, whatever you want to call them, that are if they were actually permanent structures, they would be non-conforming. A lot of them are sitting close to setbacks. A lot of them are too big, like a shed, for instance. It can only be 144 square feet. If it's a lot of these temporary storage facilities, especially if you're putting a boat or a car in there, are bigger than that. So it's creating a lot of problems when it comes to that. It has a potential to, because they're
I was gonna say, 'cause you
non-conforming.
just said there were none. Now, what about, so if I was to park that boat, and I don't have a boat. If I was to park that boat in the setback on the edge of my line, I could legally park that right to the line, right? And cover it with a tarp, and there'd be no issue? So what's the difference? I mean, I could leave that boat there for years.
Because because it's not a structure. It's not a temporary structure. Those temporary structures are meant to be temporary. The ones that you can buy for like $400. You know what I'm talking about? The canvas ones.
Yeah, oh, I got one.
Yeah, they're meant to be for temporary use. And if you put one there on your property line or 5 feet back from the setback, I don't know what your setbacks are, probably like 25 feet, I think, in that.
Yeah, it's
in that.
R1, so yeah.
Yeah. it's non-conforming.
But I guess I'm getting lost in what's the difference between me putting that boat there, wrapping it in a big ugly blue tarp, versus putting one of these things there and putting it in.
It's on the ground.
I mean, if you're talking about the aesthetics,
Yep.
which one of these is listed in here,
Yeah.
I personally would rather look at one of those one of those Quonset hut things than a tarp.
Yeah, that's
I mean, I guess that's where I'm getting lost. I mean, if it's not an issue, who cares?
Because it has the potential, and as the code enforcement officer did say, that some of these temporary storage facilities have turned permanent and they're non-conforming. They shouldn't be allowed, okay, on a particular property, but they've turned from temporary to permanent, and they never would have been allowed. They never. If you put one of those, if you want to come in and put a 200 square foot shed on your property, you won't be able to, okay? But you can put one of those temporary ones there and make it permanent. So there's a lot of questions, like you brought up.
I guess that's my big thing is I'm getting hung up on, you know, you call them temporary, but you're saying they're permanent. I mean, I read this, the minute that tarp comes off, to me that would no longer be a structure, right? It would just be a couple of bows.
This is why we're going to further discuss it.
Okay, and that's why I did, like I
Yes.
said, that was the only reason I was here.
Because you know what? You and a lot of other people, I'm glad you came in tonight to bring it up. You and a lot of other people have thrown these same questions out at us, and we kind of made us think, okay, maybe there is more to this that we have to consider.
You can leave piles of junk in your yard.
Yeah, can I add 2 cents? I mean, one of the differences, like I have a boat, it's on my trailer, it leaves in the spring, comes back in the fall before winter, and it's very movable and it's not permanent. But when you get one of these Quonset huts covered, you know, it's pipes that are nailed to the ground with a piece of canvas on it, and it becomes a structure. It's tied to the ground instead of being on wheels. I think that's just the definition.
And if it's
But
there
you
for
can
more
leave-
than
you
6
can leave
months.
That same boat there for years. I mean, I look at 2 boats every day when I drive out that have been sitting
Can't
in
get
the
'em
corner
all.
of a guy's
I mean-
lot for years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why-
And that's what my question is.
That's why we're going to go back and we're going to have to look at this a little bit.
We'll have to look at our definition of junkyard
Yeah.
too then, maybe.
We'll have to look at this a little bit deeper. That's why we're not going to
all
move
about
forward on it. It's,
definitions. It
it's
really
not in
is.
the amendments.
All right.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah,
I
thanks.
appreciate it.
Thanks.
Who else? What else you got for us?
All right, so this is a public hearing for the land use ordinance amendments. Please feel free to come forward.
Hi, I'm Jody Rogers, and Ryan Sostak and I co-own 420 Portland Street. We are currently a medical grow for marijuana. And I had a few comments and a few questions for you guys. On a positive note, I think your fees could be higher. I think it should be more beneficial to the town if you're willing to allow this use, and it would probably, the taxpayers of the town would appreciate it as well. So we're all for you guys raising that a little bit, and I have looked at what other towns are doing, and there's plenty of room for movement there. So that's one thing. I have a question. I know that for the most part, your adult use is running parallel with your medicinal. Adult grows versus medicinal. I guess I'm asking, is that considered a different use? It is, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So in that case, where we are, we've been there operating for quite some time. We are grandfathered there because we came in before any of the regulations did. There is one thing in here that, I mean, as I understand it, it's still a conditional approval. So it goes before you guys or the ZBA or?
No, it goes before us.
Okay. And am I correct that if you wanted to give leeway, I know for most setbacks you can get a variance, that isn't allowed with this, correct? Or is it?
That would have to go to the zoning, the Board of Appeals. That would have to start at the
And I'd have to double check if you could even have standing to ask for that. it's not like a.
That's
Yeah.
basically what I'm asking.
So you would
Like,
go,
is it-
so you would go to the planning office, you would talk to James, James would talk to the town planner, and then the town planner would make a decision. Actually, it would be the code enforcement, it would go to the code enforcement officer, and the code enforcement officer, if he denies your request, then you can go to the Board of Appeals.
Okay. So there's not a question. Let me just kind of go through what our concerns are there. So one of the things that the state has laid out is the 1,000-foot distance setback from a school. You guys have broadened that to include any childcare, daycare, I believe, as well. The state does allow you to reduce that to 500 feet, but no less than that. And I would like the board and the town to consider allowing for the 500, knowing that every application would be up for review. The reason that I say that, I made some copies here. We are about 500 feet from, this is our facility, and this is the property line of a piece of property that has a school on it. So this is us, and the school is actually here, but the property line is here. So, us, there's a school here, the property line is here. This is us, school, property line. So we are a little more than 500 feet from the property line. So as you take a look at this, I also bring to your attention, there's brook there that exists in between the properties. So for us, I mean, we're set back a ways. I think the spirit and the intent of the setback is for safety and, exposure for the kids and so forth. And I feel like in our instance here, I mean, we can continue to operate as a medicinal grow going forward, but we would like an opportunity to be licensed as a recreational and adult use grow. So I just want to kind of use this as an illustration of a situation where we have a very nice facility. It's kind of state of the art. We're a very professional organization, and this is going to, I'm not certain that the way it's written and what it is, as far as an ordinance goes, that you will even have the ability to grant us a variance, if that's possible. And that 500 feet is to a property line, not to a building, but to a property line, especially in a rural area, could still put you a pretty good distance from another building. So I would just like to put out there that I feel as though the state allows 500 feet, and then you guys, of course, always have the ability under the conditional review to say yes or no. But geographically, I could not cross from our property to that
Sure.
school. So there are circumstances where, because of geographical barriers or something else, it might make sense to allow it. I just want to make sure you're able to do that.
Sure. No, I mean, I understand exactly what you're saying. I'm not comfortable tonight acting and changing anything tonight, within the land use ordinance, because we already have something prepared, but I think this is something that we can definitely look into.
Okay. So what would that process look like?
The process will be that we'll ask the town planner to essentially do what you're, we also have to be very careful. We don't want to just create land use ordinance just to benefit one person.
Totally
And
agree,
so
yep.
that's why if it makes sense for us to kind of pull back those setbacks, that it would benefit everybody, not just necessarily you,
Right.
then we can move ahead on that. So that's something that I can email, and James can email the town planner, and we can
Okay.
look at that.
Great. I mean, we are all for safety, and I mean, I think when you just throw it out there to say, do you want to move any closer to children, you're definitely going to say no. But I do think there are extenuating circumstances sometime, and I just want to.
I mean, I'll explore with Lee J the geographic barrier exemption and see if there's a precedent for it. I'm sure you'll help me.
I have not seen that. I will say it's probably 50-50 in the town ordinances that I see that are being pulled together for adult use. It's 50-50, 500 or 1,000 feet.
But isn't the real question is, depending if it's in R1, like 500 feet in R1 is a long distance because everyone is near each other. But when you're out on Route 4, 500 feet may not be that significant. So I think it's, and I think the state has put a blanket number of feet on that.
But they allow 500,
But they allow 500,
but no less than 500.
but no less than 500. So it may be something like looking, if you're looking at R1, R2, or R3, there is a difference on the distance to the property line. Could be a simple,
But you guys have only, you guys are only approving it for the RC1, correct? Or RC?
RCI.
RCI.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's just one zoning
That's
that
true.
we're looking at. So I just.
There's something that we'll work on
Okay.
this
Yeah,
this
do
summer.
we have enough, yeah, we'd have to, that would go through to November, though.
Yeah,
That
so
wouldn't
this would be,
so-
this will be something that we keep like a running list of things that we want to look at. So, I mean, this will be something that we can look at, and if we even do act on it, it wouldn't be till the November vote.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's, the state's behind again, so
Yeah.
nothing's going to happen real quickly. But I do, I think everybody's kind of comfortable now with the fact that, no one can do anything until the state does, so there's no but to be ready when the state says go, I think would be a real benefit to Berwick. And like I said, I would certainly push for higher fees to really benefit the town in some
Okay.
respect. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is a public hearing for the land use ordinance amendments before us. Please feel free to come forward.
My name is James Kittredge, and I own Greystone Stables in 85 Little River Road. And I'm a little concerned in the amendments there. There's a restriction on the number of animals being placed within town. And I want to make sure that that does not impact my stables out on Little River Road. Because currently it says, I believe it's 1.5 horses per open acre. So I think that was meant to be an in-town, because that would pretty much put me out of business.
Yeah, that was meant to be in town.
Yeah, so this was something that was already voted in.
Yeah.
So Jim will be all right because you're now grandfathered non-conforming use and you could sell or it can transfer. But that wasn't, I agree, I don't think that was our intention.
Right.
And it might be as simple as just saying, this doesn't apply to R3 and just let R3 and let R3 be our,
Yeah, R3 and A.
you may want to even look at portions of R2.
I was going to say, you might even want to look at R2 as well. Yeah.
I mean, I'll stand here, and I said it back when I put my addition on and stuff, and I stood in front of this board. I believe there should be some controls for animals within town, or certain lot sizes
Yeah.
and stuff, and depending on where they are and stuff like that, because I know some places that have animals that probably shouldn't have animals. But you have to look at really the impact of how that extends out into the town, because you could be affecting a dairy or other stables or other thing, other
This wouldn't
places.
affect any existing business right now,
Well-
including yours.
Yeah.
It would be grandfathered.
But it would be grandfathered, but it means you can't expand beyond, like on the road I live on, which is a rural R3 road with probably the only farms that exist in Berwick
Yeah.
still. Some of these farms are 100, 200 acres, and even using the numbers, I was talking to James earlier today, you're really restricting the growth of these farms because it's so many animals per square feet. you know.
It says open field, and that's the other thing.
Open fields, right.
You could have a bunch of
And dairy
wooded part of
farming
it
can
and-
be very efficient if you bring everything in and you have open pastures that are not even fields sometimes.
But that's not the way we operate. All our
Yeah.
borders that we have, they're in, we put them out in paddocks and stuff. We take them out and bring them back in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
it's
wasn't the
not-
intention of that, that ordinance, so.
So we need to go
We get
back to
that
the
changed,
drawing board
yeah.
on that.
would you just do make it apply to all zones except for R3?
I wouldn't even say all R2, because we got a lot of open
R2 and
space in
R3.
R2.
Yeah.
I'd say R1. myself.
Just limit it
you
to
know,
We
R1
want to be a
zones.
farm-friendly community
Yeah,
also.
yeah,
Wait, so you just,
Well-
it only applies to R1?
yeah.
And you almost have to look at it case by
And CI,
case
right?
basis.
Yeah,
Because there are places probably out there that have animals that probably should, the size is so small that the number of animals that they have in those areas probably, for the animals' sake, should not be there.
yeah.
You know, but, so you kind of have to look at what's going on a little bit.
See, we need somebody like you to help us with that, because we have no idea.
Well, we have an animal control officer that we can leave that up to.
Right,
I mean, somebody has an acre of land, they have 5 horses on it, and they got a house and a barn and stuff. Kind of have to say, you know, the land that they're using to put those 5 horses on is smaller than my smallest paddock. I turn 1 horse out.
wow, yeah.
So, you know, I mean, common sense kind of drives some of that.
I mean, what would be would it be a benefit to strike cattle, horse, sheep, swine, and just leave it up to the discretion of the animal control officer?
What?
But keep, so delete cattle, horse, sheep, swine, okay?
Yeah,
Delete that, keep roosters not allowed in the R1
Right.
district, and then that, how many animals you can have per cleared hay pasture land or whatever is up to the discretion of the animal control officer.
no, because
I wouldn't want to leave it
having,
up to
yeah,
anybody's
having
discretion.
dealt with this directly, I left it up to the discretion of the animal control officer who never went over there and did anything. So,
Wait, we
no.
didn't have one then. Well,
You-
the
Listen,
first-
Within
Put it in the
town
R1
limits and
zone.
stuff, right, where, you know, it's tight density and
Yeah.
stuff, there has to be some type of control.
yeah,
I mean,
You know,
R1
and
is
I'll talk about another town
public
that,
sewer,
you know,
public
I
water,
worked
and
at
it's becoming
Pratt
more
Whitney,
urban.
and I came out of
Makes sense there.
a side street up there, and behind this house, there was 2 horses, and I'm looking at what they did, and it's in the middle of the town.
yeah,
They're no longer there, somebody probably asked them to move, but that would be my concern.
yeah.
You know, if you leave it up to the discretion of the animal control officer, what happens?
Well, we don't
if
have
we don't
one.
have an animal control officer.
We haven't had one for a long time. Now we have one.
Now we have one, but what if we go back to not having one and we don't have anything in the ordinances that?
Well, I think the code
You know.
enforcement office can partner with animal control office.
But at least this is guidance.
At
Yeah.
least this is guidance, but then
I
we would just
agree.
R2 and R3 would be exempt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you write
I
down?
like that idea.
It applies to CI and R1, and then we would probably want it to apply in our shoreland zones too.
And maybe aquifer protection.
That might
where
be,
you-
that's kind of dicey. Well, I think we should, I'm not sure about that one. So CI and R1.
And I think it's because we've had a few cases recently that have been really bad.
No, understood.
Yeah.
But what, just a sentence that says these requirements are not applicable to R2 and R3.
Yeah.
Right.
Not mention any other
Right.
district. Just,
And as we
just
grow,
that.
you could always add R2.
Just that. Just these requirements are not applicable in R2 and R3.
Deal.
Okay.
Good job, Mr. Chairman.
I didn't do any of this.
Take credit where credit's due.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
This is public. This is a public hearing for the land use ordinance. Feel free to come forward. Seeing nobody else come forward for the public hearing on the land use ordinance amendments, we'll close the public hearing. Now moving on to old business, land use ordinance amendments. I think we've discussed them.
Golly. Now we're going to discuss Steve Clements
Oh, yeah.
further, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a lot of discussion on it, so we got to go circle back around to.
So we're not discussing, or are we?
No, I think we're done with that.
No, I mean we're going to be discussing the land use ordinance amendments, and cannabis is in there, but we're not going to be discussing necessarily what you came up to talk about tonight. Yeah.
So to go to number 3, this might work. So subdivision and land use ordinance change to private dead-end roads. All roads in this subdivision shall remain private roads to be maintained by the developer or the lot owners and shall not be accepted or maintained by the town until they meet the municipal street design and construction standards. Period. And then this would be a new word. If this development is located in the R2, R3 AP zone and as a cul-de-sac or dead end, it shall not be accepted as a public way. And then you can also add, you know, if it is an already approved, accepted subdivision by the planning board and it's exempted.
And
Yeah.
and no changes are made. If changes are made, then it would have to fall back into this, though, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
If it comes back, okay.
So in that case, technically, that wouldn't be a road that could be petitioned to be a town way, but because that subdivision was approved in 2005, he could still go and petition the town, even though it would, if it's 2019, it could never have a chance of petitioning. Does that make sense?
I don't think there's never been a town vote against accepting a road that I can remember.
Right. Well, it was an open meeting with the selectmen, now it's on the ballot. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Most everything's on the warrant.
All right, is everybody good on that change there? I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think that's what everybody wanted to see in there.
Yes, that was the intention.
Because there's a lot of other subdivisions out there too that have been approved a while ago. So, not a lot, but there's
With that,
a number of.
that this would apply to? I think he's got the only one that I can think of right now that has a little cul-de-sac.
There's also, was it Haflinger? If they do decide to connect that to that other road.
But I thought they were gonna make a loop.
That's going to
That-
cost
that's-
way too much
yeah,
money. I
but
don't
that
think they'll
was-
be able to do that.
That's also in R1 and R2.
R2, yeah.
All right, what else? Any other discussion on the,
I think that was it.
Yeah, I think that was actually it.
all right, so tonight we'll be voting on forwarding the land use ordinance amendments to the selectmen to.
As
Dave.
amended.
As amended,
Is
yes.
that, does this include the change to the animal issue thing? The verbiage that's added to that, that's gonna be included, okay.
Can you send us a new copy?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Tomorrow morning,
so, yes, so that would be,
tomorrow afternoon.
so, everybody got that motion, what that
Yeah.
would be?
Nice.
Okay.
See you, Steve. See you, Steve. So moved.
Can you state your motion?
Glad you said
No,
that.
I like that better. I move that we we're approving them to send them to the selectmen. Is that the actual motion? Approving the amendments to the land use ordinance as amended and send them over to the selectmen.
It's you can make whatever motion you want.
That's
It
the
doesn't
motion.
have to be pretty.
I'm just doing this afterward.
Okay. All right, we have a motion, we have a second.
I'll second that.
Seconded by the vice chairman there, Paul.
As
Thanks,
stated.
guys.
Further discussion? All in favor? Okay, and that's that.
Hallelujah.
All right, next on the agenda is the conditional use application for 6 Sullivan Street, map U4, Lot 4, SCI zone, function hall, professional office, recreation facility, retail business, service business, West Wellness is the applicant. We'll start off with our planning technician, James.
Absolutely.
Hey, thanks for coming to public comment.
Wow. Bye, everybody. Nobody cares about what you're doing.
So West Wellness, they submitted the
Make you guys feel bad or anything?
Seriously, cleared the room right out.
They submitted a floor plan for all 3 floors.
I only see 2 floors, so
You must have missed.
can somebody update me on one of the floors?
just
'Cause
have
that's
second and
the
third.
only question I have.
Throwing a tantrum today.
Oh, I only have
I don't have
first and
paper on
second.
yours.
Well, I have second and
Okay.
third, yeah.
All right, perfect. I just wanted to see it.
Between you
Okay.
guys, you'll
You
have
been
it
up
all.
there?
Yeah.
Look at Niles, yeah. So I confirmed the abutters list. I actually had an abutters list
First.
from House of Hope. So you have inspections from the fire alarm, which seem to pass, and I'll let these guys talk about. There seem to be some issues with the sprinkler and the elevator.
Yeah, it's all being remedied within the next 2 weeks. The elevator service company, we're waiting for them to come. The previous owners didn't keep up with all the annual testing, so we have to get all that stuff done.
But we signed service contracts with them. and-
Yeah, it's all being done.
Cool. So tonight, the application needs to be found complete, and I think we got ahead of ourselves last meeting. We already scheduled a public hearing for March 7th.
Because they want to get moving.
Yeah, and then you guys just gotta figure out when the building visit is, what time.
All right, let's discuss the application first. So, looks like they came back in here with everything that we wanted, so. It looks to me that the application's complete.
Did you look into the LP tanks on Back Street to make sure that those are, and I think maybe just a statement from the Dennis Plana, fire chief, saying that he's looked at it
Okay
and
with it?
it seems to be okay.
Okay.
Because you have
I mean,
plows
we're
that
gonna
go-
have him come back again once all the inspections are complete, or once all the services.
Just want to be sure that
Yeah.
everything is up and
It
above
is
board
barriered
there.
off, and I know Dennis was planning on like paving it. He wanted to or something. I'm not sure if he's presented that to you
Yeah,
guys yet.
well, he presented it to the select board,
Okay.
and they actually seem on board with,
Okay.
they're talking about Back Street.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And-
well.
Yeah, and I know that barricades, concrete.
Yeah.
Barricades were put there by the House of Hope.
Yeah.
Want to make sure they were in place, they make sense as far as
Be a
the
matter
fire
of putting
department,
some
plows
like
and all that
reflective
stuff.
flags up or something to mark it even more.
Make that a condition of approval.
Yeah, just to make sure that those continue being safe as we go forward, and, yeah.
Absolutely.
Anything else on the application?
Is there a dumpster out back there?
No, there is not.
How will the trash be
We were-
disposed of?
We were gonna, we didn't know if as a business or as a business owners there, we could get a permit from the town to use the transfer station or not.
Yeah,
we're
you
not
must.
sure
Yeah, you must,
that
right?
was-
How does
I think
that work,
that's-
James?
I think that's something that you can talk with the town manager and probably
Okay.
work something out.
Well,
for
how
re-
does Subway,
Well, they have a dumpster off to the side. I think Subway does.
Right now, trash is gonna be, without the restaurant in place, it's gonna be very minimal.
Very minimal.
Yeah, all the disposal from the tattoo studio will be taken to the fire department or wherever they dispose of the
Okay.
needles and stuff, and then just trash from
Okay.
the yoga studio would be nothing
There's
really.
no use in renting a 10-yard dumpster. for
No,
all that.
definitely
Yeah,
not. It
that's-
would just
I
take
just-
up space in that
Yeah, I was
back,
just
that
for it.
back
Right, there's no
wondering
room for
how
it
that-
either.
Oh, yeah.
How that was gonna go.
So yeah, we were just gonna put some trash cans out back.
Perfect. Well, it looks complete to me now.
I also have the sign.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was gonna bring them in. This is gonna. So we were planning on painting over the Einstein sign and just screwing this right into that sign to avoid, too much work taking it down. It's pretty secured in there.
Significant, yeah.
And also I have the, this is from the tattoo studio. They have their, certificate of association, and then this is their, sign designs.
Oh, okay.
And it's, I think.
Cool.
As long as it's not neon.
No, it's, I
Yeah.
think it's gonna be a wooden,
It's gonna be
I
tattooed.
think it's gonna be a wooden sign above the main door.
Oh, okay, that
that's
looks
nice.
good, yeah.
That is
it'll
very
be
nice.
oval shape.
Somebody's artistic.
I see that.
Could use more art around here.
We
All right, what
could
do we-
use more art around here.
All right, so we're going to be voting on whether or not the application is complete.
Okay, well, I move that we find the application for West Wellness LLC at 6 Sullivan Street complete.
We have a motion, and do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded, further discussion, all in favor? Okay. So we have a public hearing scheduled for March 7th, and we wanted to do a site walk that we were talking about doing on March 7th. We could do it 5:30.
We could do it at any time because it's inside,
It's inside?
not outside.
Springtime, it's beautiful out.
Does 5:30 work for you?
I'm not gonna be available that day, so I won't be here for the meeting.
Well,
Unacceptable.
Excuse excuse me.
Priorities,
You'll have to-
priorities.
You know, struggle through without me.
Thank you for letting us know. All right. So at 5:30 work for everybody?
5:30 on the 7th?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that
I won't
working?
be available either.
Oh, you're
You guys going on vacation together or something?
you're going
Yeah,
away.
Sean and I going together.
All right. We'll see you then.
Thank you so much.
I have been in the building many times.
Yeah.
I'll give him a hard time for you.
All right. Next on the agenda is any informational items from the board for the board or the public? Anything?
If anybody needs any paddleboard equipment, please see me. You can look me up on Facebook.
Are you getting out of the paddleboarding?
I've got a deal for you. That's the only informational item I have.
I got something. We next week there's a committee meeting for our traffic study, and we are about halfway through. It's been a little bit over a year-long process. It's pretty in-depth. It's a combined Maine DOT and CACS study, and it covers the entire downtown. The concept that's coming out looks pretty sweet, and there was a community forum 2 weeks ago, or not 2 weeks ago, maybe like a month ago now.
It's
And-
longer than that.
Yeah, it was a little while ago, and there'll be another forum coming up after the committee kind of looks at this initial design, and it actually looks really interesting. Looking at two-way traffic on different streets, and we can get about 40 to 45 parking spaces on street surrounding Prime. So I think that's a new kind of development that you can get parking along Sullivan, Wilson, and School Street to alleviate the need to do, big parking lots. That'd be great. So
Would that be for prime use, or that would be general public?
it'd be our spaces, the town spaces, for general use. And eventually, this is part of a longer discussion, but we probably would want to have metered parking, and that's.
Oh God! Don't even throw that out there now.
And I can
Next
explain.
thing you know, he's going to
Thank you.
say we need to
Yeah.
build a parking garage in Berwick.
Motion to know
So
this one?
the whole thing with metered parking is it goes into alleviating the need for big parking lots, and it's supply and demand, and parking really shouldn't be free. And for anybody that disagrees, you can go on YouTube, and you can YouTube this guy named Shoop Dog, Donald Shoop, and it's the high cost of free parking, and it's convincing. So
Are we
A
gonna
guy
are we
named
gonna
Sheepdog
eventually
is going to convince me to
the high
put in
cost of
meters
free
in
parking.
downtown Berwick.
You know,
For our viewers at home, no, the planning board, I could just see this now. The planning board is going to be
Yeah.
putting in meters downtown.
yeah,
Don't listen to the millennial.
that's fine, and that would be once we're built up, and we're still
Right.
we're
Well,
still a
This is
few
years down the line.
That's
Dover just put parking
we
meters
should
in.
never put
Dover's had.
meters in downtown Berwick until South Berwick.
But the thing with
Yeah.
and then to finish that thought.
we should put meters in if we have someplace to park and go to.
yeah. Right.
That would be number one.
No, it's
I'm gonna need
it's
someplace
supply-
to go if I'm gonna come downtown and park.
It's supply, and,
Yeah.
it's supply and demand, and if there's no demand, there's going to be the charge is zero.
I think
James,
what
let's
Sean,
look at
what
that.
Sean is saying, that we want a parking problem, and then we'll deal with it.
Yeah.
We want a
Yeah.
parking problem in downtown Berwick. Okay.
I wanna,
Thank you,
I wanna
James.
something going
James.
on across the street.
I'm sorry, James, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just had to say that.
That's enough
I
out
had
of
to
you.
say that. I think you know, I
Time to
think
go
I'm,
home.
yeah.
Just came back from vacation.
Does anybody else have
And he's in
anything?
college.
Do we have any updates with anything going on across the street?
There's things
My favorite subject.
there's things in the works that they're moving. There's not much to report for news, but we're looking at some things. Sorry to be vague, but
Thank you.
yeah.
2 weeks. We'll know in 2 weeks.
Yeah, just give me. And the parking meters just went up. So.
Anything else before we move on to the adjournment? Okay. Next on the agenda is the adjournment.
I move that we adjourn the Thursday, February 21st Planning Board meeting.
I second.
All in favor?